EddieSGlaude Jr., Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and Its Urgent Lessons for Our Own. In the book Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and Its Urgent Lessons for Our Own, author EddieSGlaude Jr. explores the impact and ideas of writer and activist James Baldwin on American society. Baldwin's works reveal the corrosive effect of the lie, or the belief in white supremacy, on both Black and white Americans. Through Baldwin's life, his encounters with prominent Black leaders, and the role he assumed as a witness to the Black American experience, readers can expect an exploration of love, the value gap, and his belief in a united America should the truth be faced.
Unveiling the American Lie. The American lie refers to the false notion that white lives are more valuable than others. This belief, coined as the value gap by the author, has stained the country's history and perpetuated racial inequalities. Writer James Baldwin sought to address the lie, advocating love as a means of dismantling this toxic myth and healing the nation. Throughout history, many revered the United States as a land of democracy and equality, dismissing past racial injustices as bygone issues, claiming that everyone, regardless of race, has an equal shot at living the American dream. However, this rhetoric only serves to mask the underlying falsehood deeply rooted in the nation's foundation, the lie. This myth focuses on maintaining the illusion of white supremacy by diminishing Black Americans, undermining their intelligence, ambitions, beauty, or importance. The lie fuels the value gap, the belief that white lives matter more than others. This detrimental misconception has torn the social fabric of the United States for generations. Despite multiple chances to recognize and address the problem, the value gap remains as ingrained and pervasive as ever, creeping into people's unconsciousness and wreaking havoc on their self-esteem. Notably, Black Americans have borne the brunt of the lie's consequences, experiencing trauma and self-loathing. Acclaimed writer James Baldwin was all too familiar with this malicious force as he observed its destructive sway over his stepfather. Consumed by hatred for white people, his stepfather blindly believed the lies spewed by them. In his 1955 essay, Me and My House, Baldwin details his turbulent experiences with his abusive stepfather and explains how the lie threatened to shatter their lives, at one point consuming his stepfather. Baldwin eventually realized the toxicity of this animosity and the imprisonment it inflicted on many like his stepfather. He saw love as the solution to society's racially strained predicament. By acknowledging our shared humanity and embracing one another's intrinsic similarities and desires, love holds the key to debunking the lie before it further damages the nation. Baldwin's faith in love as the ultimate healer for racial divides often led to disagreements with advocates of other Black power movements. However, he firmly believed in love's potency in dismantling the lie and bridging the value gap. His conviction in love's ability to foster change transcended these disputes, spawning a lasting and impactful legacy. Witness to the Black American experience. James Baldwin, a gifted novelist and essayist, rose to international fame in the 1950s. After writing 2 successful novels and a collection of essays, he embarked on a journey to the American South. This transformative experience led to a new calling for Baldwin. He became a witness, striving to unveil the harsh realities of racial segregation and its impact on both Black and white Americans. Through his powerful storytelling, Baldwin gave voice to the voiceless and challenged societal norms. In the 1950s, James Baldwin was already well known for his novels and essays, including his breakthrough novel Go Tell It on the Mountain, and Giovanni's Room, famous for its candid portrayal of a gay relationship. Baldwin also published a highly praised collection of essays, Notes of a Native Son. Despite his success, it was his journey to the American South that uncovered a deeper purpose to his writing. During the 1950s, Baldwin resided in Paris, allowing him to maintain distance from the American social fabric built on lies and racial prejudice. However, in 1957, Baldwin's path led him back to the United States, specifically to the American South, a region he had never visited before. The importance of this journey lies in the fact that Baldwin discovered his role as a witness to the Black American experience. His initial tour of the South exposed the extent to which racial hatred and discrimination permeated society. At a time when segregation was only gradually declining, Baldwin observed the psychological trauma inflicted on Black Southerners, as well as the hollowing effect on many white individuals' souls. Arriving in Montgomery, Alabama, Baldwin experienced a chilling encounter with 3 hateful white men that left an indelible impression on him. This eye-opening event served as the foundation for his newly evolving role as a witness. Baldwin's mission now included not only writing for himself but also on behalf of others. He aimed to tell the stories of Black Americans, giving voice to the voiceless, and unmasking the unjust system that upheld racial inequality. Throughout his journey, Baldwin met individuals who faced unspeakable challenges due to their race, such as Dorothy Counts, one of the first Black students to attend the once segregated Harry Harding High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. Baldwin employed his eloquent prose and his insights into the human condition to share the stories of people like Dorothy, revealing the pervasive and destructive impact of racism. Through his role as a witness, James Baldwin illuminated the complex truth of the Black American experience in a deeply divided society, encouraging readers to confront the reality and advocate for change. Balancing love and power. With the end of Jim Crow laws, the civil rights movement gained momentum in the 1960s, promising change and challenging the ongoing lie of segregation. James Baldwin, a deep thinker, explored different approaches to Black empowerment, questioning if Martin Luther King Jr.'s call for love and nonviolent protest was enough. Baldwin appreciated the fight for rights but was skeptical of the aggressive stances and separatist agendas of groups like the Black Panthers and the Black Liberation Army. He believed that color should not determine who we are and maintained that love was the ultimate solution to overcome racial inequalities, even after King's assassination in 1968. The civil rights movement gathered momentum in the 1960s with the hope of dismantling segregation in the South and achieving lasting change. This quest for change motivated James Baldwin to write an article in 1961 titled, "The Dangerous Road Before Martin Luther King." In this piece, Baldwin raised a critical question: what kind of leadership would bring about enduring change? Could King's message of love and nonviolent protest suffice? Baldwin himself had doubts. Caught between different worlds of Black power leadership, James Baldwin was a brilliant thinker who examined issues from every angle, striving for nuance amidst a sea of eager voices calling for change. His approach sometimes clashed with more militant groups like the Black Panthers and the Black Liberation Army, BLA, who wanted direct action against the establishment. Despite the U.S. government's long history of providing sweeping concessions in response to racial tensions, racism and inequality persisted. While the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act of the 1960s passed, the American lie of segregation continued to escalate. Out of this struggle emerged groups like the Black Panthers and the BLA, fighting for change. James Baldwin supported the Black Panthers as a natural response to police brutality and oppression against Black people. To Baldwin, it was evident that Black people would feel enraged when white America continued denying them their rights, offering only superficial concessions. However, Baldwin also recognized flaws in the approaches of the Panthers and the BLA, as they harbored separatist agendas that he believed were not the ultimate solution. Instead, Baldwin advocated for love, like King, and didn't want race to dictate one's identity. He maintained that love was the key to overcoming racial injustice even after King's assassination in 1968. Although Baldwin was torn between different leadership styles and efforts for empowerment, he remained steadfast in his belief that love and unity were the answers to overcoming racial divides and achieving lasting change. Seeking clarity amidst chaos. James Baldwin, despite his complex relationship with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., admired the civil rights leader. After King's assassination in 1968, Baldwin sank into a tailspin, leaving the United States to recover from his grief in Istanbul. It was during this time that he wrote his introspective and experimental book, No Name in the Street, a response to his earlier work, The Fire Next Time. This period of distance from the chaos of American politics and racial tensions allowed him to regain a sense of clarity. In 1968, James Baldwin spoke candidly and critically on America's betrayals at a fundraiser where he introduced Martin Luther King Jr. He expressed the nation's shortcomings and failures in addressing the ongoing struggle for civil rights. Despite Baldwin's skepticism towards King, the assassination of the civil rights leader left him heartbroken. The subsequent deaths of his friends Malcolm X and activist Medgar Evers sent Baldwin into a turbulent time. He decided to leave the United States in search of healing and support. Istanbul became his refuge, offering a community of friends who rallied beside him. Though he experienced a tumultuous recovery, marked by an attempted suicide in 1969, by 1972, Baldwin felt reinvigorated and ready to once again serve as a critical witness to the events unfolding in America. During this time, Baldwin wrote No Name in the Street, a collection of essays that functioned as a response to his previous work, The Fire Next Time. The contrast between the two is striking. In The Fire Next Time, Baldwin warned America about the severe consequences it would face if it did not address the corrosive nature of white supremacy. The riots and violence of the late 1960s and early 1970s served as a stark reminder of his prophetic words. No Name in the Street took a different approach, experimenting with form and style to explore the reality of grief and trauma. While it did not garner the same acclaim as The Fire Next Time, the introspective work demonstrated a profound understanding of the human experience and a glimpse into the complex mind of James Baldwin. This powerful piece of literature was born from Baldwin's time away from the United States, a testament to the value of seeking clarity amidst chaos. Sometimes, distancing oneself from the madness can offer a new perspective and enable one to see things with greater clarity. The Unhopeful Hope. Despite the death of prominent black leaders and America's lack of moral conscience, James Baldwin believed in the possibility of ending racism. His shift towards a more practical approach, rather than appealing to white America's morality, marked a change in his worldview. Although the 1980s marked dark times for racial equality, Baldwin's hope in change, though unhopeful, allowed him to continue fighting against racial injustice. As James Baldwin worked on his book No Name in the Street, he was forced to reconsider his belief in using love to conquer racism in America. In a 1970 interview, he stated that through love and vulnerability, the racial nightmare in the United States could be ended, achieving unity within the nation. However, Baldwin no longer saw his duty as salvaging the souls of white Americans. Baldwin had previously tried to appeal to the moral conscience of white America. He believed it was still feasible to deter the encroachment of hate on yet another generation of white people. However, by 1970, he deemed this effort fruitless and concluded that America lacked a moral conscience. Despite this change in his worldview, Baldwin never entirely lost hope. Some critics saw Baldwin's decision to cease trying to save white America's soul as a descent into cynicism. They were less keen to endorse his later work, compared to the early 1960s. Nevertheless, the author argues that Baldwin's shift was both practical and necessary in response to America's rejection of the civil rights movement. The disappointments of the era necessitated that Baldwin abandon particular aspirations, but this did not signify a complete surrender of hope. As the 1970s waned, it appeared that America indeed had no moral conscience. In the 1980s, Ronald Reagan's presidency embodied the country's devotion to white supremacy and further revealed its deep-rooted problems. In Baldwin's perspective, Reagan exemplified America's unwillingness to address racial prejudice. Reagan's administration worked to reverse progress made, such as dismantling the Fair Housing Act of 1968, a critical step towards reducing racial inequality. However, Baldwin never completely relinquished hope. Echoing civil rights pioneer W.E.B. Du Bois, he embraced a hope that was not hopeless but unhopeful. This nuanced distinction between hopelessness and feeling unhopeful was vital for Baldwin to persist and find the stamina to continue battling against racial injustice. Unmasking America's Persistent Lie. During the 1980s, James Baldwin's second visit to the South demonstrated the enduring nature of America's lie regarding racial inequality. Despite memorials and streets named after civil rights leaders, these token gestures failed to address the deeper issue of systemic racism. Today, institutions such as the Legacy Museum and National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama, confront America's troubled past, revealing the connection between slavery, Jim Crow laws, and mass incarceration. While these organizations initiate the process of owning up to the country's history and advocating for change, the presence of Confederate monuments in their vicinity signals the long road ahead to achieve true transformation. In the 1980s, James Baldwin embarked on another journey to the American South as part of a documentary called I Heard It Through the Grapevine. This trip mirrored his influential 1957 journey, during which he embraced his role as a witness to the racial disparities ingrained in America's foundations. While traveling, Baldwin observed many superficial gestures that attempted to convey progress but concealed the nation's reluctance to implement meaningful change. Streets and memorials bearing Martin Luther King Jr.'s name may have imbued a sense of pride, however, they laid empty and irrelevant in neglected, low-income neighborhoods. Presently, there are signs of genuine efforts to address the historical falsehoods and expose America's lie. In Montgomery, Alabama, the Legacy Museum and National Memorial for Peace and Justice serve as powerful symbols of truth-telling. The museum uncovers the harsh reality of slave markets and their lasting impact on the country's history, leading up to the Civil War. It elegantly traces the link between American slavery, Jim Crow legislation, and the contemporary system of mass incarceration. The emotional weight of these stories and images ignites the healing process, encouraging a fuller understanding of the nation's past. These institutions emphasize the imperative to uncover the facts, unveil the lie, acknowledge the truth, and engage in discourse on the path to change. However, unsettling contradictions persist within the same city. Montgomery is also home to the Alabama Confederate Monument, which commemorates the soldiers that battled on behalf of the South. This stark reminder of a divided history accentuates the lingering work necessary to dismantle the misleading narrative and ultimately transform the American story for the better. Unmasking America's Racial Lie. The election of Donald Trump unveiled America's enduring racial lie and the value gap, which asserts that white lives hold greater value than black lives. Trump is a symptom of the problem, not its root cause, a fact that author James Baldwin sought to expose from the 1950s onward. To create a better America, we must confront the past and squeeze the value gap out of existence. Both Republicans and Democrats need to cast aside their fears and take bold steps to address white supremacy and promote understanding, love, and humanity. America's racial lie, which the election of Donald Trump brought to the surface, remains alive and well. However, blaming Trump and Trumpism for the problem is unwise, as the true issue runs much deeper: the ingrained complicity of the American people in perpetuating the value gap, the belief that white lives are inherently more valuable than black lives. Trump isn't the root cause, he is a symptom of a larger issue existing since the founding of the nation. James Baldwin, an influential writer and social commentator, pointed out the racial lie and value gap throughout his life until his passing in 1987. His concepts remain strikingly relevant in the era of Trumpism. The manifestations of Trump's presidency, such as white supremacists marching in the streets and the confinement of refugees in cages, are not anomalies, they represent a dark part of America that has long festered beneath the surface. To genuinely heal and progress, America must admit this truth and stop tearing itself apart. Focusing on Trumpism as the sole problem distracts from the core issue of the insidious value gap in society. Recognizing the humanity in all of us was central to Baldwin's beliefs. He envisioned a new America, or a New Jerusalem, where freedom and equality could be achieved through love and the understanding that we are all part of a shared brotherhood. To reach this, society must confront the past in a bold and meaningful way, atoning for the trauma and suffering inflicted by racism and hatred. Unfortunately, many Republicans deny the existence of the racial lie, while Democrats often hesitate to face white supremacy for fear of alienating white voters. The time for incremental gestures and political maneuvering is over. It is time to embrace big ideas and make courageous steps forward. Consistently, America has opted for familiarity in the easy path, maintaining the racist status quo. This trend must be halted, as the consequences will only worsen if unaddressed. To create a better America, we must unapologetically address the racial lie and strive to end the value gap, fostering a society based on love, understanding, and human connection.
Sadly, the themes raised in Begin Again are still strikingly relevant, as evidenced by the prevalence of racial tension in today's America. Baldwin's lessons of love, unity, and the confrontation of the lie continue to resonate, offering guidance and hope for a better society that transcends racial divisions. By adopting big, bold ideas, facing the past honestly, and valuing every life equally, we can begin the process of healing and narrowing the value gap that feeds into the destructive lie. Baldwin reminds us that only through acknowledging and reconciling with our past can we move forward and transform our New Jerusalem towards equality and freedom for all.